Tuesday, February 6th, 2018. It's the Charlton Board of Health meeting. It is 6 o'clock. All board members are in attendance, as well as Jim Philbrook, the department head. Kind of a busy night tonight. I guess we're going to start off on first things first. We're going to variance for the Patterson Dental Office. I know, Pete, you had some concerns about that.
Yes.
So,
The plan's right there, man.
okay. I don't know if you want to tell us,
Yeah.
bring us up to speed on it.
Sure.
Thank you for coming, by the way.
Under the plumbing code, they don't really break everything down. They just go medical healthcare buildings, and then it's up to the plumbing inspector to determine what they need. And because of their square footage and everything, what is required of them is a lot of fixtures. And I've already contacted the state plumbing board, or Wayne Thomas, because I also have one of these going in Sturbridge, and it's the same. The one in Sturbridge is an orthodontist, this one's a dentist. And I explained everything over the phone. I emailed everything to Wayne, and he said yes, they need to apply for a variance.
Okay.
So the Sturbridge one has already gone before the board, and the variance was granted to them. They're asking for a very similar situation like what this guy's asking. He's asking for one bathroom for his employees, handicap.
Mm-hmm.
He's asking for a bathroom for his patients. He's asking for a break room. He's asking for a custodial sink. And that's basically what he's looking for. And if you really read the plumbing code, he's supposed to have a shower, supposed to have his and her bathrooms for the staff, his and her bathrooms for the public, custodial sink, bubblers, drinking fountains. And it's just, you know, the state doesn't break it down to square footage or anything.
Okay.
So he's asking just one unisex bathroom for staff, one for patients. And I know the other dentist office asked for it, and they were granted the variance. But in order to get a variance, there needs to be two letters sent, one from the plumbing inspector asking if he opposes it, and then one from the Board of Health asking if they oppose it. So,
Did you have a letter?
yes.
Did you oppose it?
No.
So you're okay with it?
Yep.
Anything else?
No, just if you guys feel that they've met enough health requirements to occupy the building, I would appreciate, I think the owner would appreciate a letter from the board saying that they feel you've met enough health requirements.
I have drafted the letter too before the board. So you can-
Okay. Still going to be two bathrooms in there. It looks like 8 seats, 8 dental chairs. From
Yes.
this.
So a maximum of maybe 20 people in there at any given time?
I don't even think you'd see that.
No, I'm thinking worst case scenario.
Yeah.
10, 12.
10, 12.
So you're all right with this then?
Yeah, there's a bathroom for the public, a unisex handicap bathroom. There'll be a unisex handicap bathroom for the staff. He has his custodial sink. He has a break room. And he, part of his dentist work is each room gets a hand sink, so we're not asking for any variance against that.
Right.
Why would a shower be part of this?
What it is they say medical healthcare building. So they don't know if you're going to be working with foreign patients that you might need to take a shower. You might be working with maybe bloods that you would maybe spill on you. You might want to take a shower, that type of thing. They just put it in as a requirement, a catch.
Will, you got any discussion?
No, it looks good, man. Sounds good.
John, do you have any discussion?
I don't have any objection
Where's
based on what
this?
I'm seeing here.
Where's
Jim?
this located?
I respect Peter's decision, and if he's for it, I think I'm okay with it. It's up to the board, but I don't see anything wrong. It's being a brand new building, brand new handicap accessible bathrooms, so we have plenty of sinks.
We've always worked with you, Pete.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you do multiple towns, and if anybody knows, you do. So I'm good with it. If you're good with it, I'm good with it. No problem whatsoever.
Like I said, the other board, they went in January before the board, and with my letter, their Board of Health letter, explained what they were doing, and the state gave them a variance.
So
You'll get a letter out now.
The letter's there. We can, if you vote on it, Matt can sign it. We'll notarize it, make a copy, and send it out. And give it to Pete tomorrow, and he can bring it forward.
Make a motion, we
accept this plan.
go with this plan.
So it's going to be, we accept the motion for the plan at 321 Main Street. Is that accurate?
It's Route 20, Flamansky's
We put,
building.
I think the letter we put Dr. Mahid, dental office.
That should be Worcester Road.
Yeah, that's not the right address. So in the letter, it reflects, I think it's underneath that paperwork, or John may have it.
Okay. Well, we'll put it this
Same
way.
address.
For the Patterson Dental Project.
Yes.
Okay, we'll make a motion for the dental Patterson.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So it's no problem, Pete.
Okay.
If you have that draft, I'll sign it right now. And
It's right there.
There were a bunch of copies in there. Jim, it looks like there's 4 or 5 that were in
We wanted all the board members to
Yep.
see it, maybe Pete, but if you want to sign one, we'll keep it as the original, and we'll have it, Andrea can notarize it in the morning.
Yeah, I don't need to take it tonight.
okay.
We've got
I'm sure
5
Patterson
copies.
wants to come in tomorrow probably and pick up his copy.
He will.
I'll have my draft done tomorrow, and I'll give you guys a copy of it
Can you
for
do
your
it
record,
Okay.
showing that I supported it, and we can go from there.
No, there's no problem here.
Okay?
Notarize that.
Oh, do we have to notarize this? You
I
witnessed it.
witnessed it,
Okay.
and I think that it's on the record. We'll just for our records, it's a little bit, holds a little more if it's, and Andrew's notarized now, and she's dying to use her stamp. So.
I got to come back in anyways. So.
Okay, all right, great, I'll put some.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time in explaining that for us.
It'd be nice to have a dentist office in town.
Yeah.
Now we need some people to replace hair.
Yeah. Don't be mean now.
I thought he was talking about me.
Yeah.
Peter, are these your plans?
No, those are ours.
Those are what
Those
you
stay
guys
here.
are gonna keep.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. I know we got some guys out in the hall. We can do the signing of the COC for the septic system. I'm going to hold off on that, and I'm going to jump ahead to the private well regulations. I don't know if we want to get some of those guys out in the hall now. If they need a minute, we can do something else.
He's all set to talk about it. You guys want to come in?
So,
Hey guys.
gentlemen, yeah, pass this down. So basically, what we have, you guys want to grab a chair or whatever, front row, side row, wherever you'd like. So basically, what we have going on is the Board of Health has its regulations that we've been using for the process of decommissioning wells, private water wells in the town of Charlton. We had some discussion about it a few years ago, and at that time, bentonite was okay to be put in the wells. And after some education and some discussion, we decided that it's not really a good idea for this town to put the bentonite in the wells, so we got rid of that. But we did talk about filling those wells up from the bottom up with concrete. And then they cut the casing about 4 feet down below grade, and then they put a concrete slab over the top of that. So recently, there was a ACO
Yeah, that's what I gave to you. There was an ACO between Casella,
Yes.
DEP, Tower of Charlton.
So it's an
Southbridge.
administrative consent order. And that was the agreement up on the H-Foot Road, Berry Corner Road, Eleanor Circle, water line, proposed water line that's in the works. In that paperwork, it talks about the decommissioning of, at this point, it's 80 wells or so.
80, yep.
At approximately 80 wells. If you read the language in this ACO, they were requesting filling it with pea stone for the majority of the.
Yeah, it's right here, Matt, for you.
Yeah, they're going to fill it with pea stone for the majority of the well, and then approximately 20 feet down, they were going to throw some concrete, and then I believe they were still going to cut off the last 4 feet and cap it. But the pea stone doesn't meet what this board has been requiring and what the other one's been doing. So it was kind of a, we caught it, and we talked about it. Well, there's been pros and cons on this. So I'm not a well decommissioning expert. I know that these guys, you do wells, right? That's what you do for a living, both of you. I know, Chris, you've been involved in decommissioning of several public water supplies that have not used the concrete. So it really comes down to this board making a decision if we're going to allow the pea stone or if we're going to mandate that it goes with concrete. Now, there's a couple of things going on here. Number one, this whole ACO has been approved by the state. It was effort between the town of Charlton, the town of Southbridge, and the state. And this ACO has the pea stone in there. It's accepted by the state, and the state does not have a problem with that. Okay? It doesn't meet the town of Charlton regs, but the state has absolutely no problem with that. I spent hours doing an investigation. I spoke with Mary Jude Bigsley today about it, and she doesn't see a problem having the pea stone whatsoever. For us, the real decision for us, or the big concern that I have, is that I'd like everybody on this board to take in mind is the concrete is more expensive than the pea stone. Okay, so when they put this ACO together, they had line items, dig the street, maybe ledge, all these different expenses that are going to come up with this project. Well, one of them is well decommissioning. Well, they have a number at the well decommissioning based on pea stone and the method that they have in here. If the board does not accept this ACO and mandates that they go with concrete, we're talking big numbers and a change of cost. It could be hundreds of thousands of dollars in addition to what the state has. So if that happens, the town, the residents, we're probably going to have to pay the difference on that. So it's really a financial decision. Now, this board has never put financing before public health and safety. We don't really care about the money. Public health and safety is what Board of Health are supposed to do. I don't know enough about it, so that's why we asked Steve, you, Joe, Pete, you to come in and give us your thoughts on why it's so important not to go with the pea stone, or better, why it's so important to go with the concrete. We need the education for not just this project, but for the rest of the projects. Because right behind this one, we got the Mugget Hill Loop. We've got all the people in the past that have already spent the money and have used the concrete. So I don't know if one of you guys can maybe give us an education why the concrete versus the pea stone. Flip a coin.
The problem with the pea stone is
what you're gonna do is you're gonna create a conductor between water producing zones. What you're gonna do is you're gonna aid the spread of the pollution. Plain and simple. Any given well more than likely has more than one water producing zone. Could have 2, 3, 4, 5 even, you just don't know. When you have one of those, or multiple ones that are contaminated, and you allow that water to cross-contaminate between, you know, you've got a bad zone here, but a good zone here, what you're doing is you're enabling that bad water to travel, to contaminate a good zone. So what you're doing is you're potentially polluting somebody's well down the street that right now doesn't have a problem. So, you know, when it comes down to money, I mean, where's this thing going to end? You know what I mean? You're not doing anybody any favors by allowing them to do that. And I can't believe that the state will go for that. I really can't. I'd have to talk to the people that the drillers deal with. That the DEP has many different departments, and the guys that we deal with that handle the drillers, I'd like to talk to them and see what their thoughts are, because I don't believe it's going to be the same as what you're getting from, you know, for information. I just don't.
Yeah, but that's right from Marty Subert himself. That's agreed. As you talked to Mary Jude Pigsley, that's from the top. That's not
This
something,
ACO.
Yeah, that's agreed. You know, and I think Chris was part of it. That may have something, but that's not a decision that was ill made. That was a decision that
I don't
came
care
from
if
the
God
top.
said that it was okay. Okay, if I was a taxpayer and I lived down the street and I had a well that was good, and you guys are going to come along and fill all these wells that are known to be bad with pea stone, I'd be out of my mind. And I'm going to tell you right now, there's going to be trouble. There's going to be a lot of trouble over it. There's going to be a lot of finger pointing. Who allowed this to happen? I don't want to be the guy.
I think most of the on H-Foot Road, all the wells will be. No one is keeping a well.
I'm not talking about H-Foot Road.
Yeah.
I'm talking about down
Schoolhouse
Road. I'm talking about up over, you know, down around Sampson Road, Sawmill Circle. I mean, the sky's the limit over here, and it potentially can travel. And what you guys are doing is you're helping it to travel by doing this. Plain and I can simple. see that. You know, What you gotta do is you gotta pull the pump,
You got to
do it from the bottom up,
to the top.
that's it.
And get rid of that problem. This ain't fixing it. That's
No.
making a reservoir
course
to
it
make
is.
it go.
I abandoned 30 or 35 wells for ExxonMobil over around Stafford Street and over in that the first string of abandonments that they did over there, and they were adamant, and they had engineers on site to make sure that this was done properly, and it was done with neat cement. That's all they wanted, neat cement and nothing but. And I can understand their concern. They wanted to stop it from moving. You know, do what they can to stop it from traveling.
Jim, I know you were involved in some decommissioning up at Upland condos.
Yep.
The state decommissioned those,
Yeah, the state decommissioned 3 wells.
and how did they do it?
Concrete from top to the
From the bottom up?
bottom up. Yeah.
Where was this?
Behind the
Upland
behind
Farms.
Slim's.
Behind
They were
Simpson.
contaminated with salt from the Mass Pipe,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
Mass Pipe decommissioned 3 wells. So they had a.
Well, that's the way. Usually, that's the way Mass Highway wants them done. Because I've done some for Mass Highway.
Well, he came in and got our decommissioning regulations, and that's what he followed. So,
Yeah.
and I was on site to witness it. They
Mhm.
run a hose down to the bottom and up, but you know, that's the way the state does them all, I guess.
Only one time have I ever done one with pea stone, and where it was actually a suggestion of mine. And what happened was there was 3 wells, I believe it was, on a site in Sturbridge, and there were, well, actually there were 4, but there were 3 in close proximity. But we didn't know about one of them. One of them somebody had cut off and just buried, and it was left. You know, it really wasn't plugged properly and whatever. But how we found it was we hydrofracked one of the other wells, and we had water shooting out of the ground, you know, 30 feet away. And it's like, what's going on here? We get a backhoe there and start digging, and there's this well that wasn't properly abandoned. So, because those wells were connected, and it was a public water supply well that we were working on, not knowing the direction or the flow of the water, this, and it was my suggestion at that time to fill those two that were gonna get abandoned with pea stone up to the, near the surface. The bedrock was real close there. And just plug the top with cement, just so that you didn't, because potentially what you could do, if you plugged it from the bottom to the top, is you could stop all the water going into that one good well that you're gonna keep. So in an attempt to not do that, because it is a public water supply well and it's a big deal, to go through all the hoops and the hurdles to replace it, if it did shut the water off, they were okay with that, and that's the way it was done. But only in certain, and there was no contamination there. It was just a matter of these wells are offline. They don't want the state doesn't want these wells being unused to sit there. Either use them or plug them. That's their philosophy.
So that was done for the opposite reason of this, because the same effect, it's going to stop the water from this well getting to the next one.
Correct.
In that
so
case,
we
you
didn't
want that
stop
to
the
happen.
water. Correct. And that was
Because
why,
it wasn't contaminated.
and that was my suggestion to do that, and the engineer liked the idea, and he took it to the DEP, and they went with it, and they were okay with it. But that's the only time that I ever saw it that was that there was any positive to come from it.
Do you have anything to add?
No, I mean, I agree with 100% what Steve says. Anytime I've worked for Mass DOT or ExxonMobil, we've done a bunch. Same thing, need cement. They stay away from the pea stone. Myself, I've done one with pea stone. We actually couldn't fill it with concrete. It would not take it. So we put some in to get above that, and then we filled the last couple 100 feet with cement to seal it off. But we pumped in like 15 yards of concrete, and we could not. It would not fill up.
Yeah.
It could not fill the hole, so we had to. We did that, got above that, and then we filled the rest
But
with,
it's an
with
isolated.
cement.
It's an isolated.
Right.
Right.
How much is too much? I mean,
Right.
Well,
couple
yeah.
truckloads.
you get in a jam
Yeah.
and you can't fill the
Yeah.
hole. I mean,
You got to probably at $200 and something a yard for cement.
Yeah.
You know.
So that's what we're up against. Chris, I know you've done some decommissioning
Sure.
projects, so can you weigh in on, if you want?
Yeah, obviously, I'm just an engineer, not a well driller. But I would say there's three things that we're looking at here. We're looking at the Mass DEP private well guidelines. You're looking at your bylaws, and you're also looking at the guidelines and policies that Mass DEP has in place for public water supplies and public water systems. So, and I don't deal with fate and transport. I don't talk about contamination, traveling. That's not my area of expertise. So I can't sit here and say that this could happen. It might not happen. But in this case, I'll also tell you that you have 80 wells, and I've seen wells in people's basements and in areas that you may not be able to use either one, specifically one or the other practice here. You might have to use a combination of two. So having that position open, or being open to use whatever decommissioning process is going to work for that particular well, I think is the most prudent decision to make.
Well,
that way.
that's an isolated situation. I mean, there's always going to be situations where I had one 2 years ago. I abandoned for that driving range down there, and the well was against the tree. It was a big tree, 100-foot tall hardwood tree. And I said, there's no way I'm going to dig the top of that well up and pour a pad over the top of that, because I don't want to assume the liability of that tree dying and falling on somebody at the driving range and killing them.
Right.
So it's I talked to Matt about it, and he talked with the board members, and they said, at that time, just leave it be. And again, it's an isolated, and yet obviously you have to bend the rules when something like that happens. But
Yeah. I'd like to change gears just a little bit, okay? I want to talk about that concrete pad. So right now what we do is they cut the wells 4 feet below grade, and then they put a concrete pad on top of them. So maybe like a 2 foot by 4 foot, 6 inches thick pad, is
I
that?
think it calls for
4 by 4.
42 or 48 inch
Yeah, with
diameter, I
diameter.
think is what
Right.
it says.
Okay,
Like
and it
6
goes
inches
over
over.
the existing pipe, centered over the pipe.
Mhm.
Does that get buried as well?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Chris, you're familiar with that process?
I am, yes.
Okay. Can any one of you guys see the point to that? Is that a necessity, or is that something that we're doing for the sake of doing and does not need to be done?
We're doing it because it's in the regulations.
I know you're doing
I
it
don't
in
know
the
how it got in
regulations.
there. It was adopted from probably from the state's
guidelines.
Those are the states.
suggested guidelines. You know, this isn't. This is worded private well guidelines, and that's all it is. It's a suggested guideline. There is no black and white rules on this.
Correct.
So they, sent out something similar to this to every town, and every town took that and they adopted their own. I wasn't there, I didn't have any input into the original set of rules that were adopted. So, how that got in there, I don't know.
But you can't see any reason why that would help or
No,
hurt a situation?
No. I mean, if you filled it 95% of the way with pea stone and had 20 feet of
Concrete.
concrete on top, maybe. I mean, concrete does shrink a little bit, quite possibly, but other than that, I mean, I see no need.
I can see where it would though. One, if you filled in a hand dug surface well, stone lined, all right. If you fill that with native material, because
That I
basically
see.
all it is a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
What happens is, in time, the dirt will infiltrate those stones and it will settle. So if you pour that cap over the top of it, it's gonna, there might be a void underneath the cap, but it's, nobody's ever gonna get lost in it.
Yeah.
So-
I'm more talking about the artesian well with
Right.
the case.
On an artesian well, I just don't see it.
I don't
On a
see it.
hand dug well, I can understand it.
Chris, do you see any need for that concrete on there?
No, I mean, typically what I go by the guidelines and policies. The plugging material shall be allowed to, the casing shall be then be filled with a mixture of neat cement, 6% bentonite by weight. The plugging material should be allowed to flow out and along the sides of the casing to ensure that proper seal is established. And then the upper 4 feet just needs to be compacted. And it's just to prevent anything from,
Settling.
it's basically that
So-
vertical migration.
John, do you have any concerns with this? I think we should remove this concrete language from our well regs, Willie.
Yes, I think so too. It's money put out there for no
It's
reason.
being spent, it's another process, it's more time, and I just don't see,
On the pad you're talking about.
On the
right?
pad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
so, do you have any concerns about that pad?
No, I'll defer to well experts and the engineer, right?
Sure, yes.
Yeah.
So, can we get a motion to eliminate that pad for the well regs for the Charlton Town?
Make a motion, we eliminate the pad or any artesian well. When it comes to a hand dug well, it's a different situation.
Right.
Okay,
Okay, make a motion.
is there a second? Discussion?
No, just clarify it so we can do the minutes.
So, the regulation that we're discussing is specific to steel cased. They typically go at least for the first 20 feet down. Wells that are being decommissioned, a 6 or an 8-inch well or larger, but not the old field stone circular ones that could be 2 to 3 to 4 feet in diameter.
What's the reason why they ain't just taking the top sleeve and yanking it out after they?
I don't know if
well,
they can even get it.
If it's concrete lined, you
Yeah,
yeah. But what do you do with the stone line ones?
yeah. I mean, no, you just where they drive it to the ledge.
Oh, you're talking
Oh,
about
the
you're
steel-
talking
steel?
about steel pipe.
You
You
never-
can't.
you never get it out.
Never get it
Once
out.
that's,
Never
you
get
would
it
never
out.
get that out of there. That will not come out.
Usually, you set that pipe, and if you run one rod in the bedrock and allow the cuttings to go down out the outside,
You can't get it
you'll
out.
never get it out.
Never get it
I
out.
just didn't realize
Yeah,
it.
no.
We could just yank that and save that.
So we had a motion on the floor to do away with the concrete pads for the artesian wells only.
Right.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So that's one thing that I thought we should have addressed. That it was for,
No.
all for nothing.
Now, any of these wells, think they should be deeded, and somehow, if it's something else got in there on their deeds, and somebody else sold the house and went to somebody else.
On an abandoned one?
Yes.
Well, what's the process for an abandoned well? They all get recorded with GPS.
We have to do a
We have to
report.
do a report. Every
Right.
well that is abandoned or drilled needs a well completion or abandonment report from the state of Massachusetts. or Mass DEP
within-
sorry, with GPS coordinates of where that was.
Yep.
You know, within 30 days of completing that. You know, how it was abandoned and everything like that is all on that report, and that is linked to that address forever on
They
the
sell that
states.
house, the next people come in, they got it on
They can get a cut.
That's all part of
all part
that, that's all part of that, the searchable database that the state has. Anybody here can go online and search that database, so that information is out there.
Okay, so now we come back to the question at hand. How does this board feel about concreting these things from the bottom up, or allowing this project to go with pea stone from the bottom up, and then well, they won't do. Chris, what's the protocol on this? They're not talking bottom up. They're just going to pour it from the top down.
Yeah, the pea stone, it's you know, they talk about pea stone or a clean material, right? And it needs to go to the bottom of the well casing. And then from the bottom of the well casing to the top needs to be filled with a the upper 10 feet will be filled with a mixture of neat cement and 6% bentonite by weight, and then basically it's overflown and onto that 4 feet below the ground surface.
So the ACO calls for bentonite as well.
A bentonite seal
A bentonite
on the top.
seal.
The top. It's a neat cement. I mean, I think it's probably specified as a neat and with some bentonite in it.
Okay.
If they use strictly bentonite, it tends to dry up and create cracks, and you don't get that. You don't get the you won't get the seal that they're looking for. So that's why they use a mixture. I mean, these guys can contest it.
Is that why you guys told us not to use the bentonite last time? Because it cracks.
Well, yeah,
That and it washes, it'll
wash
wash away.
away.
You got a
If it
moving
moving
water.
vein, it'll take it with it.
It'll wash it right away. It's not a permanent.
No.
So with this ACO, where Chris was just talking about a bentonite mixture, do you see a problem with that, or do you think that would be all right?
I don't even know why they call for the bentonite for that couple percent in the. I mean, it's not a big deal to do it, but if you take a bentonite sample, if you will, and let it dry and see how much it contracts, when it dries, and take a neat cement sample and see how much it contracts when it dries. There's no comparison. It's like night and day. So why I don't understand why you would want to put this stuff, add this to the cement, because all it's going to do is it's going to cause it to contract more.
Yeah, cement sets up underwater.
Right.
Or they pour in the ocean.
And it does contract to a certain. I mean, cement. That's a known property of cement, but that it does contract when it dries. But it's a much smaller ratio than the bentonite is. I just don't even see why they involve the bentonite in it. But whatever. They're talking a coffee can full to a couple bags of cement. I mean, it's not.
So you don't see a problem with that?
No, I mean, if that's what they want, you can do it. It's not a problem. But when the finished product, when it dries, is going to be hot. It's not going to wash away.
I have a question for you guys.
Russ?
How many wells in Charlton have been decommissioned under the current regulations? Just roughly, would
Quite
you
a
guess?
few. We just talked about more than 40 on that last round, right? With ExxonMobil?
That was the first round
That was
they
the first
did.
round.
Somebody did the second round,
but
and
I don't know who it was.
I don't know. Supposedly they were using. I don't know what happened there, but
Yeah, that was.
I don't
that
believe
was
it.
by, that was by Ted's, and they were.
there was some on Northside Road
We
too.
did some
I rode by there one day. There was some guys monkeying around with some bags and stuff, but there was no grout pump there. There was no.
How many, Jim, do you think decommissioned? I mean, were you saying 100 or a couple hundred?
I know of the 40, but I'm not like them. I'm not sure of the other ones that who else would be doing them on Northside Road. We didn't. We checked the 40 that were done, but the ones I've checked lately are the 3 that was done by the
I
state.
mean, how long have these regulations been in effect with the neat cement?
Since before,
20 years,
since
before the mobile thing,
before
right?
I did those ones for Mobile, Exxon Mobil.
20 years ago.
So
It was about 20
Let's
years.
say 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done.
I'm going to say more than 50.
I'm sorry?
Your answer is more than 50.
Okay. I ask you the question because naturally I see the rock in the hard place you guys are in right now. Naturally, you don't want to throw the cost onto the people who, first of all, this really isn't their problem to begin with. You don't want them to ultimately pay for it. And ultimately, you don't want the taxpayers to have to pay for this when it's not their problem either. Going back and saying, in this situation, we're going to make an exception, I think you'll quickly find you could possibly wind up in the same position the town administrator is in, trying to figure out right now with the Board of Selectmen and the water betterment situations. I don't know if any of you guys know what I'm talking about with that, where the interest payments alone were not reimbursed to some people. Now, all those people are coming and saying, hey, we need to be treated fairly just like the other people, and why should we pay this cost when we don't have to? And all those people who have already come before this time period, well, now they're going to be coming to your board and saying the same thing if you make the exception in this case. And it is it putting money before public health and safety? And I think these guys here are addressing those questions, and they're saying, this is why we came up with the well regulations and not pea stone in the wells. So
I know this board has always, 7 years, 8 years I've been on it, we've always have tried to do what it is, not who it is, regardless. So yeah, we are in a rock and a hard spot on this right now. I will say, we're talking with members of DEP, they don't feel that we're putting anybody at risk. They feel that the pea stone is a viable solution, and they don't have a problem with it. It's approved by them. They said they weighed it heavily, and there was pros and cons on both sides of this.
Wouldn't it be up to the Board of Health for health-wise?
It's up to the Board of Health.
There are
To
no
have our
pros.
own rigs.
What's the pro?
Isn't there money in that agreement specifically built into that agreement for unforeseen costs?
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
Isn't it a potential possibility to go back into that agreement and say, sorry, the Board of Health didn't put this burden on the taxpayers or the residents, and the people who made the agreement need to look at the agreement and find the money to right the situation so that the taxpayers don't pay for it and the residents don't pay for it, because it's neither of their fault.
So in a preliminary discussion with the state, I was told that there is a construction budget allocated for this project, and there's a line item for each individual construction phase. And if we change this ACO agreement, the town of Charlton is going to have to pay the difference from what that line item is budgeted for now. That's what I was told over the phone. So that's the seriousness behind that. So, I don't know, because my thought was, well, if there's a line item and it's, X amount of dollars to decommission the wells, and, we don't get above it, it'd be hard pressed. This thing hasn't gone out to bid yet. It'd be hard pressed to say, well, it went over budget here, budget there. The explanation was, no, there's a line item, and if it goes over that, Charlton has to pay it.
Well, who agreed to this deal without having all the facts?
I don't know if the ACO was signed.
Robin and the selectman, John McGrath, was in on it.
Who was that? I couldn't hear what you said.
The selectman approved and Robin Craver.
Yeah.
The ACO.
Why would you approve an agreement when you don't know what all the costs are involved?
No, they wouldn't.
That doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense to me.
Would you at the meeting, Jim?
Well, there were numerous meetings. I was on a couple with Chris McClure, but certainly I wasn't in on
It should have never went through.
Oh.
but it's not, and this was something that was brought up by Marty Suberg during it, and he seemed adamant that it was okay, and it's kind of would not cause, but I'm saying if stone's not gonna work, then why do the stone, hold the pump, decommission it from the house? If you're gonna look for all that, and the stones, because I called Charlton, well, I think I spoke to you,
Yeah.
and because I'm not, like Matt said, I'm not a professional well decommissioner, certainly we go by the regs, but this was a special dispensation that was agreed upon, but certainly I yield to the, our regs, what they say. But certainly, if putting stone in there, you say is not going to help it at all, then why are we doing the stone? Why are we doing?
Right now, they don't have the money to do they're squealing because they don't have the money to do the proper abandonment now. So how are they gonna squeal when they have to extend the water lines to another 100 houses because they didn't plug
right
these
the
things
first time.
right the first time? Not only are they gonna have to plug another 100 wells, but they're gonna have to pay to run the water line another 2 miles or whatever. So I just don't understand why you would take a shortcut in the beginning. I mean, this is a shortcut. This is a ridiculous. It's a ridiculous
Stupid
thing, and I
one,
can't even believe that the state is on board with this. I can't believe it.
They say they want to do the P-stone because it's cheaper. It's probably not going to be in the long run if you did it. Now, not all these wells are in the front yard, right next to the end of the driveway. You just can't take a dump truck back up to this well with an asphalt chute and wing the gate open and let the P-stone fall in. No. It's going to go for about 3 seconds, and it's going to be bridged.
Right.
You need to sit there with a 5-gallon pail, and you need to sprinkle this stuff in there and let it fall to the bottom. I mean, it's labor intensive. Some of these wells are in the front yard, easy to get to. Some of these other wells, them other ones, they're down, back, over the banking. And how are you going to get, some of the wells are 600 feet deep. So you're going to get 7 yards of P-stone in 5-gallon pails down around over a cliff.
It's easy
down
to
below.
get it's easy to get
the hose, the grout line down there and pump it full of cement.
Right. And just push it right through.
And push
the
it right
only way
through.
to do it.
It's all labor intensive, but you're gonna do.
That's
There's
why
no.
they got the pump trucks for.
Well,
Concrete
I mean,
pump trucks.
well, you guys are saying concrete. You should
It's-
take that word out of
it's
the
not- it's
vocabulary.
cement,
It's
it's not
not.
concrete. It's
There
neat
is
cement.
no aggregate. It's neat cement. It's cement and water. No aggregate.
To answer the question, if this is the official ACO?
Yeah.
Okay. Under the consented by the town of Charlton, the only signature that I am seeing is our town administrator, Robin. It's the only line item, it's the only signature. I don't see anything from John McGrath out here.
No, I'm saying John McGrath was in the room with us
Okay.
when the discussion was there. I don't know if Rob, I don't know when it was signed. I only got a copy of it a couple, maybe a month and a half ago.
This was signed back in April of 2017.
But I certainly, the idea was not to have any costs come back to the town of Charlton. And remember, the board does not have a line item to expenditure of cash for this. We don't. You'd have to go before the selectmen.
John?
I never got the cross-contamination possibility with the P-stone. But my comments are, nobody's being mandated to close their well. Some people can opt to keep them open, maintaining the cross-contamination concern anyway. The DEP may keep some of our wells open for monitoring, possible migration of contamination, keeping the cross-contamination concern open. The monitoring wells at the landfill are going nowhere, cross-contaminating everything around. So if contamination is going to spread, it's going to be from the source, which is at the landfill, we believe, migrating out. 10 schoolhouses only testing one address. No one else within 500 feet of that address or any on Berry or from Mars has expanded in 3 years. With all of our wells open, possible cross-contamination now as well. The P-stone would be better than leaving it open like it is now. So I see it, for me, as a homeowner in this zone, I could take either one and it's not going to bother me which one it is because I already know the reality of, you can't tell me which way the water flows because Casella will tell you that.
Right.
They're going to tell you it's not flowing towards us. And we have no real knowledge that the cross-contamination is a concern with P-stone. I mean, I could definitely see it being more of a possibility of P-stone over concrete, but the reality of it is, I don't know if it would be.
Willie?
I think we should go with our rigs.
John, you got any comments?
I'm with you. Well, I don't know where you're leading, but I'm with Willie. I think the concrete, and after hearing Mr. Sebeska, it sounds like the right thing to do. I don't think the homeowner should have to pay a dime. I don't think the town should have to pay either. I don't know the legal ramifications of this, but
They didn't do it.
Somebody put the horse before the cart.
Right.
Casella.
Yeah.
I mean, if I could, it's just the other side of it, is you have, and these policies and regulations were put in with stakeholders from the Well Drillers Association. So I think that, making a statement, this is from input from state agencies, engineers, the Well Drillers Association, and everybody, you know, that's involved with this, is these are the regulations that are used throughout the state. There are communities, of course, you can put anything into your own bylaws that would be more restrictive. Obviously, you have that ability, but again, this isn't something that they're throwing, you know, somebody somewhere is just throwing, you know, caution into the wind coming up with this. This is regulated by the Department of Environmental Protection, you know, and that's their main, you know, and this is, we're looking at an area that is contaminated. So I don't think that they're looking at this in a, you know, a strictly monetary value is from what people are saying. I think that they've had people at that level looking at it, and I'm sure there's some culpability even with, I know Mobile Exxon, they're the type that they don't want to worry about anything. So fill it with cement. Even if you told me you didn't have to, they're going to do it. But whether or not another scientist or somebody else looked at it said there's really no need for you to do it, because this is just, you know, the US EPA, everybody's looked at this. That's just, you know, from a scientist, that's the information that I have to put out. It's not strictly a monetary. I know you've been doing one thing, you know, for the same way since the beginning. That doesn't necessarily always mean that's the best way to do it, but this is based on science and then an input from other agencies. And that's, you know, that's kind of, as a scientist, I kind of have to put that out there. I don't think that in any way, shape, or form that someone is looking at this just from a dollar value, because Pete's right. It's not going to be. It may be that you have to put in cement. They're not going to just go in and, you know, there's going to be certain circumstances that you're not going to be able to get the stone in there or the clean material in there. It's going to be a different way to do it. This just gives them the ability to review that in that manner. But
Actually, the homeowners shouldn't pay for it. The town shouldn't pay for it. It's the seller's problem. I think we should have a meeting with them and have them do it.
Well,
They're the ones that.
Yeah.
the stage we're at, Kathleen.
Just a quick question. Right now, who's responsible to pay for the decommissioning of the well?
At this point, Chris, you probably know better, and Jim, you know better. I believe this is funded by the state of Massachusetts, as well as Casella, as well as the town of Southbridge. There's a tri-community paying on that.
So, okay, so if those three entities are paying for the decommissioning of the wells, right now it's not going on Charlton or the homeowner. So why wouldn't it be assumed that those three entities would? Is it because the ACU is already signed? Or
The problem that we're facing today is that the ACO is signed. So that's an agreement
okay.
that those three entities, as well as the town of Charlton, have agreed upon. And what it is there's a number for decommissioning of the wells. And I want to clarify, because they're saying if we change the rules, but we're not changing our rules. We're trying to maintain the rules that we had in play. But if we change the rules of this ACO and it goes above the construction line item that they have in place now, the burden is now going to come back on this town. Be it town meeting for a vote, which I don't know about how that all plays out, or the town of Charlton is going to have to pay for the difference.
Well, if the selectmen didn't sign it, why would it be in effect? Is there the final?
Shouldn't have signed it.
I don't
I
know
think they
about.
authorized Robin to sign is what.
Yeah, Kathleen, you would know more about that stuff than me because you've been there for years on that. But all I could tell you is on the signature page, to me it looks like there was one line item consented to the town of Charlton. And Robin signed it on the town of Charlton's behalf.
So the selectmen may have taken a vote to allow her to sign it.
Correct.
That would, you'd have to make sure that if that didn't happen, then it's
Not binding.
not binding.
So just to back up why we're in this bind, meaning the Board of Health, is as these talks were going on, our board was not a part of it. We didn't know anything about it. Now, Jim, I know you went to a couple of, you went to 2 of several meetings.
I went to a few with Chris. I mean, with there was 3 of us in the room, I believe, and a couple on. There was a lot of people on conference call, and I think there was a discussion of by Marty Suberg. I think brought up along with Mary Jude that they would like to go with the crushed stone and the concrete, which is acceptable in a good way. That would meet theirs, and I think we just, as it progressed, we're saying, it was just a discussion. In the end, it was through and done and designed, but I don't think it was it was a general discussion that day. I think we looked at it that Marty said that the DEP would be more than satisfied to get these people their municipal water, and a lot of these wells are not contaminated. There's very few that are in that contaminated level. And there are some people choosing not even to decommission wells. They're not mandatory. You don't have to tie in. There are a lot of homes that have not chosen to tie in. As John said, they're still going to have their well there, and it's not decommissioned at all.
Mm-hmm. Well, if the well is taken out of service, there are rules and regulations that are going to force them people to plug those wells. I don't want to argue with you, but
Well, I'm not here to argue.
they're not. The state is not big on you taking a well out of service and letting it sit idle.
No, I'm talking about they're not going to tie into the water. They're not part of the program, and they're keeping that well.
No, but what I just understood you to say was there are some that are that may choose to hook up, but are
No,
not.
that's not allowed. No, you misunderstood me. I'm saying there's some people
Okay.
that are in that area that have been offered water.
I thought that's what you said.
No. There are people in that area that have been offered it and said no,
Okay.
blatantly.
All right.
But if you're going to accept taxpayer dollars, and Casella is paying for this, not the town of Southbridge. The town of Southbridge borrowed and bonded the money. Casella is reimbursing the town of Southbridge, so Southbridge is not paying either. But if you choose and you did not consign a consent form to tie in, then you keep your well and you're not part of that, but you're not getting connected. But if you connect in, you have to decommission your well.
I misunderstood what you
There's
said.
there's no choice in that.
I want to clarify that because my understanding was if you took the free tie-in,
Yeah.
you were mandated to decommission your well. But if you paid out of your own pocket for the tie-in, you could keep your own well for irrigation or fill in the pools.
That is correct. But if you choose the free water line with the connect,
Right.
you were decommissioning, period.
So potentially what happens is somebody says, I'll pay for my own tie-in, I'm going to keep my own artesian well for irrigation, and then don't irrigate. I mean, it leaves the potential for a stagnant well,
Well,
But there's no there's no mechanism. Russ?
Why are you guys struggling with the problem so much when it's not really yours? And just leave the burden on whomever is trying to throw it on you guys. You guys have policies and procedures, and there it is. Stick with them. And then say, from here, it's not your job to figure out the cost issue of this at all. Why should it be? You didn't present the problem. Why should you figure it out?
And Matt, if I could just add on to that, if the Board of Selectmen or any other agency in this town were to pass a rule or pass a policy or sign something, and then the Board of Health found out about it and it was against their health regulations, it's null and void because you guys are the final authority on health. And they, if they didn't consult you, it's their bad. You're the final authority, and they can't do something that's unhealthy for the citizens of Charlton. And you know about it. It's on you to stop it.
Yeah, my personal struggle with this is in speaking with DEP. They don't want to do anything unhealthy either. So that's not. And Chris, you touched on that. They're not trying to save a buck for the sake of saving a buck. They believe that the P-Stone method is acceptable. So,
well,
go ahead.
There's no sense going over it and over and over it. But anybody that would say that is a viable option really shouldn't be making the decision because they don't know what they're talking about.
Well, let me ask Willie, do you have any thoughts to this, or do you want more time to do your own research? Are you ready to make a decision, or what do you think?
Well, I think that they shouldn't put stone in there. They should yank the pump, put the, not concrete,
Put the pipe.
Cement.
Yeah. Neat cement.
and put the cement in and do it right. We don't care about the cost, we care about the health. This board here.
Yep. John, do you want more time to do some of your own research, or do you have a...
I'm in agreement with what Willie said and kind of what Mr. Seveska said. I'm concerned about cross-contamination down the road. I think we've seen with ExxonMobil, it took 20 or 30 years to get to the schools, you know, a mile a year or whatever. I can only see this plume potentially getting bigger down there around H-foot and beyond. I don't think it's in the best interest of anybody to use the Keystone.
I agree.
I would
agree.
Fully agree.
say that we should at least try to get the ball rolling, get everybody, if we're in agreement, to get everybody to say, hey, here's what the board says. We're not going to approve this unless it's just the concrete, and see what happens. You know, somebody can go off and do a cost study or whatever. They can push back, but right now, that's the way I feel.
Jim?
I think that ultimately the goal was the state would to facilitate is to quickly get municipal water to these residents of H-foot Road. Before Casella moved and closed, they took $5 million of state money, put it in, and I think ultimately they're all going to be able to drink their water now, and that was the big goal in the picture. And I think that that is the ultimate goal, and that's what I'm happy for, is that this was facilitated. They're going to get their water, and they're not going to use their wells. How we come up with it, and we can't change the ACO, but certainly we can, if the board stands by what the decision of that is, then as Mary Jude sent me a letter today and she spoke with you, then the bill would come back to the town of Charlton. So that's something we have to take into consideration. How much? They said $500,000 additional monies. So that would come back to the taxpayer also. So you have to take that into the risk for reward, and I'm not advocating that because I'm not a well driller, and I respect these guys. I called them right away and said, you know, hey, this is what's going on. And he explained to me that, you know, this is the best way to do it. But also the best thing to do is to make sure we get them connected to municipal water. And as Casella said, those wells are still open up there. They're going to be open for the next 50 years, and where that contamination goes or whatever. And I think that we also have taken the fact that the board can enforce that, and I facilitate the board. You're the bosses here. But also, if the money has to be approved from somewhere, and they're already, if you look at the budget as you were at the meeting, it's already over.
Yeah, I know.
The budget's already over by almost 400,000. So.
And that water line's going to be over $1 million by the time they're done. That whole loop is all ledge.
Yeah,
They're
it is.
They're an ounce of dirt over there, so whatever
And
they quote,
they actually
it's going to be
quote-
so far over.
The most
This
money in
this
here
a-
is full
this
ledge.
nothing.
The most money. Hey, want to take a look at? It's in here, but
but
it just is. It's public information. But certainly, I'm not advocating, and I think the best way to decommission a well is according to our regulations. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
But you know, attending a few meetings apart, I had no decision in the fact of how they were going to decommission. Those plans came out, and we just saw them, and it was there. So, as far as you know, I'm just happy for the residents of H. Road, Ellen Lane, that they are going to get their water, and ultimately that was the goal of the DEP also.
So how do you feel about the residents that are?
No, and that's why I respect
a little
that.
bit
That's
beyond
why they
that.
should.
Beyond.
But we need to come to a conclusion of: is someone going to approve this money? Where is it going to come from? Because we can enforce the Board of Health rules and regulations, but we don't have a line item that would allow us to do that. So we need to find a direction of: do we meet with the selectmen? And I'm sure the selectmen approved for Robin to sign this.
I'm sure they did.
So
I want to ask the question, and this is for you two guys, and I'm not asking for a direct number. I'm just kind of yes for a yes or a no. So in this, and keep in mind, this job is prevailing wages. Okay, in this line item for the construction cost, it says decommissioning of the wells. The anticipated dollar value was $5.50 a linear foot.
No.
Does that seem a reasonable cost?
No.
You can't buy the pipe to put in
It's
the
less
water
than
grout it for
it's
$5
less than
a foot.
half.
That's nowhere near.
No.
That's
Ain't even close.
That's nowhere near a
even close.
reasonable figure.
Then
If
you
you're
gotta
gonna
cover
pay
the
the
labor.
prevailing wage, you're probably talking $14-15 a foot.
So, this line item is
Minimum.
already behind the ball before it's even begun, potentially, if what,
No, that's you don't, they're not even.
No.
That's
not gonna
not
happen.
even, not even close. Prevailing wage for a pump operator is like $45 an hour. Laborers are 36 or 38. Ain't nowhere near. I don't know where that number come from. But
I
ain't
did
even
speak
close.
to Cassandra Larochelle, was the lead on the project. She said that when she sent out estimates of what the cost may be, they didn't ask for stone; they asked for concrete. So they're trying to get the consensus of where, and she had bids anywhere from $6,000 to $20,000 depending on the depth of the well.
per well.
Per well. So I think they're already behind on.
And what-
$5 a foot. I don't
And
know.
what happens now is if this board goes above the ACO, the taxpayers are going to be burdened with something that is already behind the ball to begin with, which isn't fair to the taxpayers.
No,
either.
But
You're right.
you gotta agree with what Russ said. This isn't your problem.
No, I
It
understand.
ain't anybody's problem that's sitting at this table right now. It's somebody else's problem.
Yeah, we should let them
Let them deal with it.
deal with it.
That's right.
But ultimately, it's going to be every taxpayer in this room's problem.
Well,
No, hopefully not.
if,
It's-
no,
it's-
you would hope not.
Right.
But ultimately, if it's a $500,000 price tag that you're gonna pay now, you're gonna save yourself $10 million within the next 20 years. So.
Well, not saving the 10 million either, but if
Is it-
there's all those
No, I
residents
said
that
you're
don't-
gonna save, you know,
yeah, no,
you're gonna balk at 400,000, 500,000, 600,000, but what the cost of doing this the wrong way is gonna come back, it's gonna be millions and millions, and it's gonna be an ongoing nightmare, you
and
know?
I feel it's not so much the cost though of it is how many people get contaminated water and drink it.
Well, this is what I'm trying to
That's-
say. I mean,
that's what our
it's just
concern
gonna
is.
snowball. There's gonna be another bunch of wells that have a problem. Not to say you could plug these with cement, right, and do it the right way, do the best you can possibly do, and it still can spread.
Right.
But you
Doesn't
got,
50% of that money come from the state ultimately in that agreement?
I don't know what the agreement was as far as chopping it up. I don't
I'm
know.
pretty sure a large percentage.
No,
of that
$5 million came
comes
from the
directly
state.
From the state.
And $5 million came from a bond that Southbridge borrowed and Casella's reimbursing. No costs were Charlton didn't want to incur any costs to the residents or to the taxpayers.
Holding Casella's feet to the fire in this situation may not work, but the state, that's a surefire answer.
You want to make a vote?
Yeah, I really do.
And you,
They should have, the selectmen never should have, they should have went with us before they signed that.
Yeah.
Well,
so do you
I think we should do it the right way.
you want to stick by the make a motion that
This is the Board of Health, it's a health situation. It ain't the money, I'm a taxpayer, I'm gonna pay as much as anybody else. I do. I got plenty of houses and stuff, you do, we all do. But we gotta look at the health way of doing it, I think.
and the contamination.
Right.
Bottom line is contamination of the environment and everything.
Right.
Someone want to make a motion?
I make a motion that we stick with the current regulations that do not allow pea stone for capping or decommissioning the well, and that we instead go with the cement,
need some.
neat cement, sorry. I'll get it by the end of
I think, if I may, I think we have to, if you're going to make a motion for that, you have to stick to our regulations, or we have to change them.
Right, I'm sorry.
Well, our regulations say
Is it-
cement.
Yeah, well, our regulations
I
say
think
crossed out
I think the
bentonite.
town regs say need some.
It says
It says
garage.
needs to,
Well,
but
it
we,
doesn't say- I haven't
in
looked
in
at
our
it in a while.
regulations, we have like 4 copies of our regulations, which need to be cleaned up anyway, as far as, because bentonite was crossed out, and there's just a signature there, and I can't make out whose signature it
It was
is.
lying, said no bentonite.
No
Signed
bentonite,
it.
so, and I
That
think
was
that
after the
was,
there was we came to
Yeah, I
the
remember.
meeting and talked about
Yep.
this a couple of years ago.
Right.
And
And that's what we got out of it, no bentonite.
and that, but I think in order to clean those up, we need to discuss about getting one hard copy that's approved by the board and certified. That way, we don't have 4 different copies, but handwritten changes to our well regs aren't acceptable.
Right.
So, for me, of all the people in the past that have had to follow the rules, It's hard to, it's hard to make an allowance here, an exception there. It doesn't seem like it's right. And then going down the road, we're going to open up a can of worms with the potential anybody. Well, we let them do it. How can we, anyways, so we had a motion on the floor to decommission the wells as the Board of Health regulations state with the cement. We have done away with that concrete slab. Is there a second on that?
There's a second on that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Vote carries unanimous, 3-0. So we're at.
What's your next step?
I know we're going to have to talk to Robin, Selectmen. I know that there's that committee for the, what is it, the 95% tile?
It'll be 90% the next meeting, on the 26th, I believe it is.
So we're going to have to bring it back to that team and let them know what this board's looking for. Now that we've done that and we've said our piece, my question is, can the state override us?
Yes.
So if the state comes back and says, we're overriding it,
Because it's a special dispensation, because Southbridge already fought it because they didn't want to change from copper to plastic, and they lost. So all those lines that go to the house that were going to be copper, which brought the cost up by $300,000-400,000, were cut out, and the regulations didn't apply. And that was, you were at the meeting. That was from Heather Blakely itself. So
That's different. That ain't a hazard.
well,
It's
it's a
not
health.
public.
It's
Not a
feeding
health
water. It's feeding water.
Yeah,
It's
but-
So they
Outdoors,
changed.
yep.
They changed.
they
They
changed.
changed it from copper back to plastic.
Yes.
But they dug every lateral in the town of Charlton up and switched it over to copper.
I
Now they're going back
know.
again.
I agree. It's you just. I know. I understand. I don't write the rule. I can just, and that was at the meeting. Heather Blakely was not for it. Neither was
kidding
the water.
What a waste.
But they made them go with plastic
What
instead
a-
of copper. And when
what
they
a
dug
waste.
all those up,
They dug up
made
all
them
of Route
change it.
20, all of Main Street, every water main that they put in, and they changed all the laterals.
That's
to
not
copper.
right.
No, they did not. They allowed them to use what was installed. All the plastic that
Yeah,
was
because
Nobody-
you would have been
nobody-
there, right?
nobody was tied on.
I've been involved with every connection. Every connection that was plastic, they did not make them dig it up.
I'm talking the ones that they put in from the main to the houses that were never used. They dug them all up and swapped them over to copper.
From the services that were installed, from the mains to the service
From the main
lines.
to the edge, from the service lines, they they left them. They dug them
Yeah.
all up and changed them. Right.
so we're going to have to do some notification. I don't know who's involved in this. I know it's not our problem and whoever's problem it is, but somehow I certainly feel like it's our problem. So.
We did what we thought was right. I think.
At the end of the day, it's not who it is, it's what it is. And this board has always done its best to look out for public health and safety to the best of our ability.
John Johnson talked to.
John?
Can I tell the group this won't impact the timeline for the project, or it might?
I don't think it has anything to do with that timeline, but if they want to put it on us, they can, but I don't. That's the last step, is the decommissioning.
Right.
It doesn't jam up anything.
They're talking, what, 6 months minimum?
Year
Before they would,
minimum.
yeah.
They got a lot of blasting, like you said, there's a lot of ledge.
I think
Right.
they got
There's another good thing. Now you're gonna go over there and start blasting.
They're going to open up
Get
everything.
open everything up. You want that pea stone in there? Now you got leach fields. Everybody. Gonzo. You know?
Okay. Well, I definitely want to thank both you guys for coming in and
Thank
putting
you.
in your
No
2
problem.
cents. Chris, thank you very
Sure.
much for putting in your knowledge, and
Thank you.
everybody that commented, thank you.
Good seeing you. Chris?
Appreciate it.
See you.
Pete, sorry.
That's all right.
Steve?
See, Matt.
Good to see you.
Knowledge goes a long way.
Yes.
Sometimes you can't fight City Hall.
So their cost estimate to decommission all the wells was $170,000
Yeah.
for all the wells up there.
No, I think it's 300.
Okay,
I
I'm sorry, I'm
think-
going
sure.
by this, 161,000.
But I think I was looking for the line item here.
It's right here. $5.50 a foot.
29,260 feet of decommissioned wells, $161,000.
I believe it's 300,000 in there, but I'm not. I'm trying to find it. I can't find it, but that's what was discussed with Cassandra Larshall. That's they have in there, but certainly. I think every well should be. There may be situations where they wouldn't be able to use stone anyway. That they were talking, they would have to. But Chris, maybe you could find it.
Yeah. So this is actually the estimate you see in the attached to the ACOP. This was a preliminary. This is based upon concept. So
Okay.
this is way back when. This hasn't
Yeah.
been refined at all. So
This is.
yeah, the design. Their design.
Chris could probably find it.
They basically curtailed their design down to being a little bit more, accurate. So, I can take a look into it here, but I'll let you know what
This will probably start up when it's done.
Yep.
The DP's been adamant that the project will go forward as planned, and any overcosts will be
The expense of the town of Charlton.
expensive to town of Charlton.
I don't know how they're gonna hash that out because.
Okay, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
So item number 27, deactivation of residential water well supplies, assume a depth of 450. So they have 480,000 set aside. Yeah.
So that's more than I even. So that's,
Yeah. And again, these you don't know until we're at the point where the design gets approved. It's in front of the DEP for their approval. Once that happens, then it goes out to bid, and then at that point in time, they start evaluating the real costs. Because everything now is just it's what we call a engineer's opinion of probable cost. We take the values that we know based upon all the projects that we've done before, and use averages based upon what's happened, and we come up with an estimate, which we hope that isn't.
So 78 wells. Do you think that's adequate? Some of those are 600 feet deep. Though.
The
The
cost-
average is 418 feet.
This $6,000 a well they assumed. So what they have to assume also is that somebody's going to, these contracts, whoever wins, it's going to go out and look for individuals that are going to be competitive for it. Cheaper. Yeah, that's just the market.
Cheaper labor
Right.
and all that. They're going by union, that, and,
And some well
Could be
companies
done on behalf
are
of-
family-owned companies. They don't need to pay prevailing wage. If the family's working on it, they just put in a rate that they can get the job done for and make a good living at it, right? So
Yeah.
that's what you hope for. If somebody comes in like that.
This don't have
So-
to be done by.
In reality, okay, because this board, we're not trying to stop the project. We're not trying to spend money for no reason. And I guess really we're kind of hung up on the money a little bit because it's no doubt this board wants to go with the cement, but we don't want taxpayers to have to pay with. But in the updated bid-based schedule that I just was handed, right? So it shows, and it's an average, but the assumed depth of 450 feet, right? So that comes up to $13.50 a foot,
Right.
not the $5.50.
Right.
So if these guys are saying that the concrete's going to be $14 a foot,
Yeah.
this might be all for nothing, and there might not be a big difference whatsoever.
I think that Cassandra LaRochelle was talking that, I think they're going to do what they have to do. And if it comes to this, it may all work out because they're going to be competitive bidding out there.
Yeah.
And I think if someone, like you said, wants that job, I think we could stay within the confines of that and still follow the Charlton Board of Health regulation.
I don't see
I
it
really-
costing the taxpayers $500,000 though. When you take a good look at it right now, it shows that it's about $13.50 a foot.
Right.
John Jordan.
John, please.
I deal with public bid docs all the time and bidding public jobs at schools. I think the most important thing to me would be to make sure after it goes through the DEP that cement is listed in the bid docs, not as a change order after the fact for
Right.
Bridgestone, because there's always tremendous overhead associated with any change orders. So I think the job, if possible, should get bid with cement in the documents for the bid, and there should
Okay.
be a line item for that on the bid document, so that you can see what the bid came in at after you see what they've allotted for it, so you know the delta, if there is one.
Yeah, I agree with you, 100%.
So it shouldn't go out as Keystone and a change order after the fact.
Yeah, no, change orders are dollar bills, and it it should be in the spec originally.
So the priority would be, because it's still in the 75 to 100% design stage at this point in time, the priority would be to make sure that as John said, that the description and the specifications and also the details get changed so
Yeah.
that it has been that way.
And then,
While you still have the opportunity, because it's not
yeah,
finalized design.
hopefully there's a little bit of savings without doing that concrete slab. I know it's peanuts, but it, even if it's a couple $100 towards 80 wells, you're talking, 20 grand,
It
16
adds up.
grand. It does add up.
Yep.
Mark?
I got a quick question. I hate to assume, but I take it, I'm under the assumption that when they were weighing this out between cement and pea stone, that they also factored in the intensive labor part of the pea stone. If for some reason that got overlooked, you said that there is a number that they have, and anything over that the town has to assume. If you did go with the pea stone and it ended up being 3 times more than what they expected, where would that money come from? Would the town still be on the hook for that? Or because I think cheaper will be the cement myself, for the fact that, like they were saying, you're not going to get trucks anywhere near to dump it, and now you got to have guys with wheelbarrows or buckets, and to fill a 400-foot well, 5-gallon bucket at a time,
Yeah.
2 guys, one guy filling buckets and one guy dumping, is more than a day's worth of work.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
and that's once the pea stone's already down there. So, I mean, I don't know how they can say it's cheaper. I think, yeah, the cement is more expensive, cost cement versus the pea stone, but in the long run, I can't see how the pea stone is a cheaper way. I don't know. Again, I'm assuming, but do they have the labor in there? Because I think it's going to be a lot more money than what they're thinking.
I agree. Prevailing wages adds up quick, and then not everybody runs when they're on prevailing wages.
I mean, if you're talking, it could end up being a week per well, and you got 80 wells. Think of how much that is per $40 an hour times 40 hours per well times, that's not including the pea stone.
They ain't saying what grade of concrete you gotta put in either.
No, but concrete, like
Concrete, you can put a lot to it and make it expensive, but you can put just regular concrete in there.
yeah, like they said, it can take a hose. It's no different than sucking out a septic, that a guy's got a septic, way back behind his house. The truck doesn't have to get back there. They got
Right.
hoses, you run a hose out, there you go, you let it dump and off it goes. But man, I would not want to be the guy with a wheelbarrow up and down, hundreds of feet through, up and over, whatever.
If they had a bunch set up, and they had a pump truck, they could go.
Yep.
Well,
And
then
they may do
And
it that way.
look at, they do 10 stories, 20 stories, 100 stories for these,
The well drillers have a trailer that mixes neat cement right there. They slurry it, and they have a pump on it. So it isn't a cement truck coming in. Most of them have, the guys that are efficient at it just come in with a truck, and they're mixing in big cases of, pallets of the bags and water, just doing it right there.
But I'm sure with the cement, they can also do several wells a day.
Yeah.
Easily, compared to how many days is it going to take just to do one well the other way.
Right.
I don't know. I just think cost-wise, I can't see the cement being more than the pea stone. I just can't. And if it is, it can't be by much just because of the labor alone.
Well, we will see, but
It tells me it's not going to be a month before our next meeting.
yeah, probably not. All right, any more discussion on this? Because if not, I'd like to move forward on the next line item. Okay, thank you, Chris, very much. Thank you. Okay, next we have on here, under new business, signing of the COC for septic systems before the well test. This has happened to me twice since our last meeting, and it's happened several times. Right now, the Charlton, the COC stands for Certificate of Compliance. Okay, so right now, the way our regs read is we will not issue a certificate of compliance for a septic system until the well water test is done.
Right.
So what's happened is, the bottom line is, why? What does one have to do with the other? How are they related, and what's the correlation? Why are they related? So what ultimately happens is you get a septic installer, they'll go in, they throw a septic system in, they've just shelled out all types of money for the septic system. Now, it's time to get paid for the septic work, and the banks or the builders or the homeowners aren't going to release the funds without a certificate of compliance. That's kind of the goal on a septic build is, you build your septic, here's your certificate of compliance, okay, now you pay me, and that's how it all works. So what ultimately is happening is, and it's happened time and time and time again, is these septic guys are going out, doing the work, putting in the septic systems, and now the bank's not releasing funds, or they're not getting paid for their jobs because they're waiting on water results. And the two of them aren't related.
No, but they got to have water to get the
Building
law.
permit.
Right. But they got to have a perk too to get it.
That's
What's
right.
the perk?
Mhm.
But they ain't got the water. They can always put a holding tank or anything else over there for the septic. But the water they got to have, and they got to be tested.
So the water has to be tested. And I can tell you right now, I know of 3 or 4 septic systems that are installed, and the house isn't built yet. They get
They got the well and the tested already.
They didn't test the well. They have the septic system.
In Charlton?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to do that.
It's quantity first, then quality before you sign the.
Right. They have the quantity of the water. The well's in.
But they got to have the test too.
But I guess what I'm saying is, how does that affect the septic system, the certificate for getting a septic?
Well, as long as they got a perk,
Mm-hmm.
they're going to get a septic system in, no matter what.
And what we're talking about is, once they already put the septic system in,
They shouldn't do that until the well's in and get tested.
because what's happened is, like they just did one, McKinstry Drive was one. What happened was, they put the septic in, everything's fine. Melody came out, inspected, everything's good, the septic's good to go. They hydro-seeded it, they put the straw on it, everything was fine. The guy he's got the foundation in, but he hasn't put the floor in, so they haven't done the water test yet, because they just haven't done the water test yet. And even if they did the water test, we're going to make them put in a filtration system and all that.
Right.
But there's no slab for them to put the filtration system in the cellar. None of that exists yet. But I can't see why what the water test has to do with holding back on giving a certificate of compliance.
It shouldn't, but we always did the well and the test first.
Well,
and a perk. Perk's got to be done first.
No, they do the perk first.
Yeah.
That happens, and then they install the well.
Right.
And then they get enough water.
The quantity.
Quantity of water. So once the perk's done, they get an approved plan. They come in here, we give them a permit, they go install the septic system. Myself, I just can't see why we would hold back giving them a certificate of compliance for the septic system when the well test isn't done. Now, here's the thing. Say they do the well test, and the well test comes back with gross alpha or anything in it that, arsenic or whatever. It's not like they got away with anything.
No.
Because the certificate of compliance is not the final sign-off on the house. It's not an occupancy sign-off. So we still hold a signature page open before anybody can move into that house.
Right.
So what I'm talking about here is keeping the 2 items separate. So if a septic gets done, we can give the septic guy his paperwork, and he can be on his merry way.
Yeah.
And when the water test comes back, same as always. If it comes back with anything positive, then we do what we've always done. I'm not talking about anything, but I don't see why one is holding back one on the other. That's twice now because guy did one in Charlton. Septic's done. He's trying to get his money. He's got thousands and thousands out on this job, and the builder's like, "Well, I'm not sure when I'm going to do the well test." Well, that ain't right.
No.
What's the well test got to do with the sick? And then I got one right after, Jim.
And I think this is something Andrea and Andrea does a great job handling stuff. She said, Jim, why do we hold back on the COC? Because the contractors aren't getting paid. And if the builder, like you said, holds up before he can do anything, now all these installers and stuff, they're not getting paid.
Yes.
And they're the ones coming in saying, hey, did they sign yet? Did they sign yet? Did they sign yet? So like Matt said, Kurt only wants to see quantity to give him a building permit. You do a perk, whatever, he wants to see that there's enough quantity, not quality. Later, we're not going to sign the building, the final building card
Occupancy.
until see the plumbing there, and then the water quality will come to us, and then we could decide whether they need a deed restriction for filtration. And we're not until we sign. Kurt's not going to let them be in there. So there are protections there.
That's
right.
But if we're going to facilitate and help the people in the community get paid a little more, I think that's unnecessary to wait to the very, very end, because that's what a lot of people come in complaining. I'd like to get paid, and we're the ones holding it up. But
Yeah.
basically, we're not, because the homeowner itself can decide that he got this far, and then they may not do anything.
And
And
a
you
lot
can't
of
pay 'em.
times it's up to the banks. The banks
Yep.
release in schedules. Okay, you get your septic done, we give you X amount of dollars. You get your well in,
Right.
and so the septic's done. It's been done, and now all of a sudden, the bank's like, "Well, where's your certificate of compliance?" Well, they're waiting for the well test. Well, they're not going to do the well test until they put the concrete floor, and they're going to build the whole house. Like that might be towards the end of the project,
Right.
and it's not fair.
It's not fair.
No, and that's a lot of the questions we get, and we feel bad, and Andrew feels bad, and she brought it up because she's very attentive to the people's needs that say, hey, why? And we have checks and balances to make sure that it's okay after.
It's not like all of a sudden they're going to be able to be living in this house because we give them a COC. That's not the
No.
case. We still have a signature for the occupancy
Yep.
in the end.
Right.
So I think that we should. My suggestion is that we do away with that rule that we have.
The regulation.
The regulation
for the
that
well
says that.
test prior to
Would
the
you have
signing
to
of
have the
COC.
bank do it too?
Well, what would happen is if now all of a sudden the septic is installed, we give the installer the certificate of compliance
Compliance.
if he meets it. Now he gives it to the bank.
Bank,
The
and
bank
what-
can pay it.
And what if the bank says, no, I want the well too? So it ain't up to us no more.
Well, if the bank says he wants the well too, that's fine, but that hasn't been the case.
Oh, okay,
You know.
That doesn't seem to be the problem,
okay.
because the septic's the big one, and that's the high ticket item. You're
Yeah.
talking 15 grand.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, easily.
And don't get me wrong, well filtration systems, those can be 10 grand, so it's,
Yeah.
You're right.
But
No,
but,
yeah.
but they're just not, there's no reason one should hold up the other.
Correct.
Well, why can't
I
we
agree.
change that?
You can.
We can.
We can. Sounds like we're going to.
I think we should.
I think Matt's absolutely right. I think to facilitate and make, we're trying to be a more friendly office and get people in here, get them going, and keep things moving. There'd be some happy people.
Mhm.
And it ain't gonna hurt nobody, because it's gonna be done after anyhow.
Right, we have checks and balances in place, and I think we're looking and reviewing Kim, the new employee. She's doing very, very well, catching on. That we're looking over all the paperwork and trying to streamline things that are unnecessary, and that's one of the unnecessary things that really holds up people. They do it for a living; they want to get their money.
It's only fair. So
Yes.
I know, that's what I did.
you want to make a motion that we do away with that rule?
Yes, I make a motion, we do away with having both septic and the well done, one or the other, right? And and change the rule.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So I think for clarification, we're doing away with that. We can sign the COC before the quality
test.
is done, and the checks and balances for that are the building permit and the final, and we're going to get those in before we sign it anyway. We're going to have the plumber inspector sign off. He won't sign until we get the water quality test anyway.
That's right.
So,
So, yeah.
and we won't sign anything without Peter Starkis's signature on there.
Right.
Still on here, for tonight's discussion was the private well regulations. I think that if you actually read our well regulations, they need to be tightened up. Jim, you said that.
Yep.
I think that the board should really take a solid look at them and just. We've got chicken scratch handwritten on them. We just, we know what they are. There's nothing really to them as far as the decommissioning. Well, the decommissioning aspect is the one that's the hot topic right now. But
Yeah, but we can clean those up and maybe present a copy for the board to review with an old copy, and the changes will be highlighted in red, and you can sign off on those sections that are changes. Because having a hint crossed out and just putting someone's name there.
that's what I'm saying. So like tonight we discussed getting rid of this concrete slab on top.
Yep.
Right.
I'd like to see a copy with that eliminated.
Yep.
I'd like to see one that says wells will be decommissioned with neat cement from the bottom up.
Straightforward, clear cut, nothing.
Clear cut.
Yep.
No.
I agree.
And then cut 4 feet below ground surface,
Mhm.
backfilled with compaction on top. That's it. That's all
Pretty
about it. And it's got to be detached from the existing dwelling.
Yes, and the pump would be pulled, of course.
Pumps pulled, yeah. So I think we just need to get that on paper, make sure that is
We'll work
the
on that
final.
and get it for the
Now,
board.
the homeowner has got the right to keep their pump. Right.
Sure, the old pump
So,
that gets pulled? Oh,
Make
yeah.
sure-
You can
know,
sell that.
Make sure,
It's
make
500
sure
for
they
the
got a
pump
right
and
to have
500
it
for the
first,
motor,
so you
right?
can get rid
Something
of
like
it.
that?
Or
It's expensive.
It
Because
is.
they're all working,
Last
Yeah.
time I had
they
one.
can sell it.
Pump and motor about $1,000.
That's your possession, it's your property.
Right.
I don't.
But we don't
Yeah.
want somebody to go in there and grab it and take it away, and then they say, "Oh, where's my pump?" And
Well,
we-
did you guys get literature how that was going to go? As far as the pumps? You assuming they're just going to take it and be on your way? Be on their way?
I'm assuming I'm gonna get my pump.
You think you're going to keep it?
I would want to keep mine, not to say I'm going to need it there, but down the road, if I have a second home or a summer home and that
Yeah.
pump craps the bed, like you say, it's at least $1,000 to replace it.
Yeah.
I got a spare that I can throw
Yeah.
in
Or
there.
you got a family member who has a well,
That's
and
right.
he may get
Right.
struck by lightning, and you can help him out.
It's a good thing that you brought up because I was under the assumption that when they pull it, it's mine. I mean, technically we paid for it.
Absolutely.
So
They'll take it away if you want them to, and that and all
they
affiliated.
can take all the black pipe and stuff.
Yeah.
But I want the pump.
But the pump belongs to
So,
whoever.
Jim, I know we have a 90% meeting coming up, a 95% meeting, was it?
90.
90%.
Yep.
So can you address that with the team that
Sure.
Gets a
that the
contract.
pumps, we want to make sure that the homeowner has the option to keep or have the pumps discarded?
Absolutely.
Make that a line item that just it's said out loud in front of all the parties to be that the homeowners know they have the right to keep the pump if they would like it.
And I think this is meeting is being filmed and stuff, and I think that looking at those numbers and speaking to a gentleman in the hall and stuff, I think that in the long run, it may be cheaper to do the cement in some cases than do the stone.
Well-
So I think when this is all hashed out in the end, I think it's all going to work out for both sides.
Let's hope
And
so.
it'd be done right.
I can tell you that the fear of it being more expensive has been quite a topic of concern
Sure.
for me and you and
Me too.
some
I
of the
feel-
other parties involved.
I feel horrible. I'm just happy that the line's in, but certainly we have regulations, and I facilitate the needs of the board. And if this is what, like you said, it's not who it is, it's what it is. And I think on part of that, and I'm not making any excuses about that, but when you're sitting there and he brings that up in a meeting, and then it becomes part of it, it's not like you approved it. It's discussion, and then it becomes. And I think Robin did a really good job, and I know that they mentioned about, but Robin worked her butt off trying to get this and facilitate this. So I think she had the best interest of the residents in here, and as I did. So
I'm sure, and as on any contract, there's always going to be a bump in the road or
Sure,
something that was overlooked.
Sure.
You know, and
How
I
does she know? She doesn't know all the regulations
Yeah,
with all the
you know,
departments.
well, it was just brought up. It wasn't like I was sitting here with the regulations in front of me.
I
And-
know,
and-
you either. So.
And you know, it wasn't. And I think the state, on their behalf, are trying to step forward, brought $5 million forward, and I don't think the sport's trying to facilitate any excess pay on taxpayers. But I think in the long run, we're looking at public health, safety, and the environment on all of these issues.
I don't feel, from a financial point of view, that other parties involved think it's going to be cheaper for the cement, and that's the battle that I've been trying to explain for the last few days.
That it will be cheaper, you said?
That it will not. They feel as though if the
Yeah.
board votes
I got
on
that.
the cement, that the town of Charlton's going to have to spend
Well, just
$500,000.
speaking to the gentleman, Mr. Sylvester, and the gentleman, which I forget his name from,
Pete.
Charlton, Pete, they said they wouldn't bid on stone. They won't do it because they have some kind of responsibility, so they wouldn't even give a quote for stone. So, I certainly, I hope this is all, and I think at that 90% meeting, we can direct things, and I know there's overcost, but remember, this is a competitive bid, and I think that in the end, that this will all work out.
I think it will work out too.
Hope so.
Just a little hot seat.
Right there. Let's keep it right there.
But right is right, wrong is wrong.
So I think back on track here. I think we need to just tighten up the well regs.
Sure, I'll work on
Certainly the decommission of it, get that black and white. And I know there's other well regs in there that we really need to talk about. One of them is protocol for testing. When you test, when you don't have to test. There's a rule in there, John. I know you've been here for this already. If your gross alpha is an exceedance, they automatically make you test for 226, 228 uranium. And the way the board has felt in the past and the way that we have done it is if you go in with a deeded filtration system, we allow you to test the water after the filtration system is in, instead of before the filtration system is in, because ultimately what happens is you're testing several times for a moot point, because if your uranium comes back at an elevated level and they say you need to put a filtration system in, some of these contractors are already putting the filtration system in first. So let's spend the money on the filtration system, let's not spend the money on the testing, assuming we're going to have to get it. So I just think we need to tighten that one up a little bit more black and white, just so it's, it's part of our normal, protocol.
It's been a discussion for a long time.
It's been a discussion, and it's still, as many times as we've talked about it, right now it's a variance. It just needs to be the way it is. So I know we want to look at that.
And the homeowners should know too, they should have a thing to change the filters regular.
Mm-hmm.
And the average one don't know nothing about it.
Yep, you're right.
They let it go for years.
Well, every time we talk about water, we always want to recommend homeowners should definitely, if they have filtration systems, go by your recommended manufacturer's recommended changing of the filters, whether it's every year, every 6 months, whatever your system may be. It's very important to change it, because those filters could actually hold contaminants and make it a stronger contamination that you potentially drinking. And if you're a homeowner and you haven't had your water tested in a long time, the Board of Health certainly recommends that you test that water, especially if you're drinking it or your family's drinking it. Very important. Town of Charlton's got water issues left and right, and hopefully everybody's drinking safe water. So, Jim.
And that's what the WPI students that worked so hard on the project, that's something they stress in their video that's still online for them to look at. The Charlton residents, the Board of Health strongly recommends that you change your filters out in a certain period. And that was part of the informational program that WPI did. So.
And we've set it up 100 times, but even still, you might have tested your water 2 years ago and everything was clean, and you test your water today and it might not be as clean, or vice versa. So the water flow is always changing. It's very important to, especially if you're drinking that water, it's very important to know what you're drinking.
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion on the private well regs? I'd like to make that for a line item on our next Board of Health meeting, so we can get that done. Moving on then, Jim, I know you have some department head reports that you'd like to talk about. So if you want to take over?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, the big thing is we are mandated to do some testing for our landfills in Charlton here, which are 90 and 54 Flint Road. We are currently, our landfill account is at $200. The last bills we sent to Robin, and Robin took care of them. But I spoke with Gary today. I did speak to Matt briefly about it. We can't expect someone to do services and without having money to appropriate. So I think this is the time that we have to go before we're doing budgets. So I did my budget this is not part, and this is a separate budget, but certainly a very important item, that the estimated cost that we're looking at are quite substantial. So we're looking at almost, we've got 26,000 for 90 to get through fiscal 2018. 31,730 is an estimated cost for 54. And then we have to get into fiscal year 2019, which would be another 21,000. Well, this is the waste site cleanup. This is actually for Robin. That's part of the town's portion of it. But that could be cut off. But we still don't have any money to do the mandated DEP requirements for testing at our well.
So let me get this straight.
Yeah.
For the two landfills, 90 Flint Road and the 54 Flint Road, we're looking somewhere around $58,000, $59,000
Yeah, for just for 2018.
for the 2018. Okay,
Yeah. And we have to figure in the cost of mowing also.
that's in there.
Yeah, and that's the 5,000. That was erosion repair mowing that I added in there.
Yeah.
So this comes out, but this is something that is going to have to go before we need to have appropriation of this, because, like I said, at one point we had money in our accounts, but it's slowly getting eaten away, and it's down to the point where we don't have any more money for it.
So just so this board knows, and I'm sure you do, when this landfill, specifically 90 Flint Road, was uncapped, we had money in a FAM. We had $1 million something in there, was it?
Yeah, at one point it was about $1 million.
About $1 million in there. So, as we have come into compliance with state regulations, we've been chipping away at that money. So this is not a new expense that these landfills are creating. We've had money allocated towards them, but now that money has been depleted, and now it's needs to
Or we
needs to
go
happen.
to a town meeting now for that, or we just go to the selectmen?
I think
I mean, to the,
I think we're going to want to appropriate it at town meeting.
I think this is something that has to be brought up now, because we're ready to go to town meeting for appropriation.
If they would put this in with the rest of
Robin
the
would
budgetary
recommend this to go,
lines.
if FinCom does the approval, that
Right.
they would approve this at town meeting.
Thank you, folks.
But this is not something that is an overcost that we're just doing to do. This is something that's mandated by the DEP that we have to do.
Yeah.
Right.
This is not a choice.
we just gotta get the money.
And you have to be in compliance. If we're worried about health, safety, and the environment, this is certainly an important aspect. We want to make sure our landfill is not contaminating any of the residents' wells around, and that's why we do this. You know, you're mandated to test for the next 30 years. That just like the Southwich landfill would be, you need to test until there's consistently no. The last 3 rounds for the 2 homes that are around our landfill that had the VOCs have been clean, which is a good thing. But there's still contamination in some of the well sites on our landfill that we have to monitor. So.
Right.
So, I agree with you. We're going to have to.
Can we get the money any other way before to go to the town meeting? Can we go to the, what you call it?
I know if they allowed that solar to go through that this board brought to them, we wouldn't be having this talk.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that's didn't happen, and
Look at all the other towns that are doing it on their landfill.
We do have an obligation to do this anyway, and I certainly think that this is not something that is just arbitrarily thrown out there. This,
And you know what? I did misspeak. Even if we had the solar on the landfill, the majority of the funding for this is for the monitoring and the testing. So
Mhm.
we would have still been on the hook for that.
yeah,
The erosion repair, the mowing, those we wouldn't be doing. But
all right.
but then we'd also be getting some funding in from that landfill to help offset this cost.
Well, I know you want to go out to bid probably for the mowing again, but we can't do that without any money.
Well, we
technically.
can't even put this out to bid either.
Nope.
So
This is mostly CMG cost, the estimated cost from.
These are estimated costs based upon what we've paid in the past.
Right.
These are estimated costs that CMG has incurred, billed us in the past. We just got a bill for like $26,000 just for doing the last round of testing. So it was 23 or something like that. But that's something that we won't have any more funds to do that.
and that number seems crazy money.
But you're testing for a whole slew of things at a number
a lot
of
of work.
sites.
And
Yeah.
and there's reports, and they have to do it
Oh, yeah.
4 quarterlies. But That was down. That price there came down. Our first price was around what, 98,000.
98,000 for it was Lang. Bruce Haskell was hired us,
Yeah.
but it wasn't Bruce that was doing it. He had a junior engineer doing it. We
Right.
never saw that person that much. Gary has certainly been approachable, always here for us, and his costs are considerably, not even less than, way less than
It's a
half.
third.
It's a third.
And so even though this number of the 25,000 or whatever, 30,000 seems like a crazy number, it's actually 1/3 of what the last person.
Yep.
They didn't bill us. Did we pay that one time?
We had discussion. It was high, but we had to pay it. Yeah.
We had to pay it for the first. That was part of the closure on.
Post-closure report that we did end up getting a lot of information out of it. Like you said, a lot of this is paperwork.
Yeah, 'cause that was when the engineer actually closed the landfill after it was capped.
Yeah.
Part of the post-closure was this report.
Yeah.
But now we have to do it for the next 30 years. We've got maybe, 3 years down, 4 years down, 26 to go.
This is, I mean, this would be asking for the minimum. I don't want to have to go every year, but certainly you don't want to ask for more than you. But to go every single year to ask for this, I think at some point in time they're going to have to make a larger appropriation to set aside for the landfill in the long term. You look at it as kind of a capital thing, but this is a mandated issue that the DEP is not going to take. Well, we didn't appropriate the money for it, so we're not going to do it. It's not. It's, you know, if you want to do it, you have to do it.
Right.
Yeah, if we don't do it, they'll send somebody in and then send us the bill.
Well,
There's penalties.
Yeah, oh
and-
yeah. I
Yeah,
was
it's-
just saying, yeah.
You know,
I'm
so
with you.
I would like to send this forward to, we have another person in finance, now the finance director, is, go through Rob and I already spoke to her about, we need to do this, so.
Yes.
I wanted to come to the board first,
Yeah.
but we need to get some kind of appropriation so we can even go and have bids or anything, it just.
Yeah, no, I agree.
We can't, you can't, so, this is what, I think that's this would be on the low end. I think we're looking at even asking for more. Because
I
it's
would
only
think-
going to get us through 2018, and we're going to be in 2019 before you know it.
Yeah.
Right.
And now, keep in mind, there's two issues going on. This is the annual stuff that we're mandated to do.
Mhm.
We also have contamination issue on the 54 Flint Road landfill.
You're right, and those things will pop up that could change these numbers. All of a sudden now, you get it hit, and you're mandated to test out 500 feet, and then you get a hit there, you get to test out. So this is
That's in addition to what
exactly.
may or may not be
this,
coming
this is
down the
low,
road.
low, pending that we don't
Bare
have any
minimum.
issues.
Yeah.
So you can't lowball it at any point, but I think this is very important. There's some waste cleanups that, that Gary works for Robin as part of the town doing, but certainly that's a portion. But I think that the monies that we did have, we had like 70, maybe 3 years ago, which is down to $200 and something. And the town's got a good financial team now, and I think this is we need to really come forward getting some money so we're solvent as far as taking care of our landfill. We're so adamant about everyone else, we certainly don't want to be lapsed on our own landfill as far as doing a proper monitoring.
Right. So
Yeah.
what do you need from us?
I'd like to, based on this as a casual estimate of that we go forward with a number to get appropriation of funds so we have some money so we can make sure we do the mandated issues
I
that are
agree.
currently required.
Do we need to vote on that, or
I don't think we need to vote. I just
No.
think we say, please do.
please
Okay.
do?
I just didn't want to go forward without speaking to the board on this.
No,
realizing that,
absolutely.
No. Thank you for bringing it up.
you have to realize that it's expensive to maintain the landfill,
Sure.
even when it's closed. So, we're hoping our neighbors next door have enough in their FAM to continue to monitor for the next 50 or years, whatever they need when that closes. So, certainly don't want any other issues.
I'd like to put solar up there.
Solar would have been pretty good.
And goats.
There's no reason why we couldn't either. There's other ones that, look at the other dumps. That would help us out.
Well, there's a lot of solar projects. I know that. I get them on my desk
You know, get the-
quite often.
Oh, yeah.
You watched that thing last night with Gore?
No.
You didn't see that about the warming?
Mm-mm.
That was quite a thing.
Oh, yeah.
He was the vice president,
Mhm.
and he went all over these countries, and within, 40 years, if we don't do something about it, half of Florida will be flooded, New York. I mean, he went on, and it was a good thing.
You got a place in Florida,
Can't
don't you?
predict the weather
Oh.
5 days out.
Put my white X down there.
Cut that out.
Moving on, Jim.
Also, to update on Kim Buccini, I'm having her come in early tomorrow.
Okay.
Because there anticipated storm in the town
Yep.
hall may end up closing.
Yep.
So rather than lose her 5 hours, she's been working out well. She's a diligent, very smart, catching on pretty quick. We've got a lot of stuff going on. We've got other projects that I'm working on as far as the MVP, which is the Municipal Vulnerability Program
Mhm.
that the board's going to have to attend in April. We're working on that.
Okay.
We're working on the marijuana advisory committee, working on that. We've had some applications. I've had them go through zoning for additional ones, and they've been denied. So, but certainly, things are moving forward. Very busy in here. Andrea does a great job. She even caught on to that issue and brought it up to me about
COC.
because people are coming into her.
She gets
and
the
saying-
brunt of the
She gets the
complaints.
idea. It's not. There's checks and balances in place, and that's what we want. Someone who's,
I asked her, just said, if you come across anything in your travels that doesn't seem right or seems, you have any type of question about it, throw it at us. So, I asked her to do that. I'm sure she brings it before you. And
No, I tell her anytime the board requests something, unless you need to facilitate, that's what we're here for. We facilitate the needs of the board,
Yep.
and that's what we do. And we're here to be, helpful to the community. Not always. There's some times where you have to follow the law, and this is one of the, with housing and stuff. I went on one today. It was very difficult, but certainly we have a good office in here.
Yeah.
It works well. So.
I know the feedback's been very, very good.
That's good. We like to hear that, and that feedback should be good because anyone who comes in here, we're more than helpful to everyone. We have them sit down, we have them a cup of coffee, we help them, and certainly there's never a no. It's like, what can we do for you?
Right. Yeah.
And we don't
It's
turn.
good. I've heard
We don't. And Willie's in here a lot, and then he knows that the
Because he's
girls are
retired.
good.
Because you're retired.
The girls like to see him. They always ask, Willie hasn't been in today. It's like,
Yeah. You must not be.
They get
alone.
worried if he doesn't show up.
Yeah,
Look
really.
around them and I scare them to death.
So, but
So if they have a heart attack, the town will have to pay for their.
and hopefully tomorrow's not. We don't get the snow we're expecting. But
Snow's going to start tomorrow at 10 a.m. and then it's going to switch over to some light freezing rain about 3 o'clock.
About 8 o'clock is supposed to start, right?
Yeah.
No, 10 o'clock.
10.
Everybody will get to work. And
yeah, and get to work and get stuck, and hopefully school is. With all the problems they had in Sutton with the
They
buses.
know it's coming.
Yeah, I saw that
Just
on-
cancel it
on
in
the
school for what it costs to
Matt,
go in.
do you
and
get
out.
to sign that? That's what I was going to ask because he's going to come in tomorrow for that. The variance I have on my desk. Is it okay if we're going to notarize it and I'm going to hand it out? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Like I said, it was, you witnessed me signing it. It's on the tape.
It's on the tape, yeah.
If that's not proper protocol,
We'll call
I'll call me. I'll come in. I'll do it.
No, we have a. It's good that we have Andrea now, and I had her get her notary.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't do it because I can sign stuff, but certainly, and not having it down the hall and wait. And we have a notary in this office, and we're going to put up a sign that there's a notary here also. And we're here to get things notarized quick. It speeds things up if someone's out, and Andrea is more than happy to use her notary stamp. And I bought her a notary book so we can log everything in like it's supposed to.
What's Say Cheese? Where are they?
Treehouse Brewery.
Oh.
It's a mobile food permit. Their grilled cheese about this thick, and they're awesome.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What are they going to do about the traffic deal?
They're working on it. I was there Saturday again. The owner is cognizant of the fact that they're going right turn only, and they're advising people to use the proper turnaround procedures. But they're
Where
shooting
are they-
across into
where are
They are.
turning around now?
Last time
Sober.
I came over that hill,
Oh yeah.
eastbound, a
Me
car
too.
pulled out from out of state. I think it was New Jersey. They did a right-hand turn. They immediately came over to the high-speed lane. I knew exactly what they were going to do.
Should
They
have
put on their
drove.
brakes and they did a U-turn into Zorbas and then went back. So I had to put on the brakes. Now I'm in a Prius. I'm not an 18-wheeler coming up and over that hill at
They
50
wouldn't be able
to
to stop.
60 miles an hour
I've-
and have another 18-wheeler next to them. That's what's going to.
Same thing happened to me coming back from a well decommissioning when they were doing that.
You
That
said that.
that car pulled right over to the fast lane which I was in.
And then slams on the
Slam
brakes.
on the brakes because they couldn't get over into Zorbas because they're in a rush to go to the Mass Pike the other direction.
Yes, right. Half the traffic that's pulling out there is going the opposite
And I'm
way.
like, and
There's a lot of
luckily I
time.
got to stop in time. But if it's bad weather or slippery roads, I may not be able to stop.
Yeah.
So
I know.
And the owner of Treehouse Brewery is trying his best to make sure everyone's educated that go right and find a proper turnaround. There's
Almost the state should put a
Immediate,
blinking light there.
well, I
You know, because when they come out, they come out. You know,
Well, they
no,
should-
no.
buy out to the next road so they can
Yeah,
drive out and
with
come out.
Sampson's
Where to
Road,
go.
or that, or change it so that's an entrance only, and then
No,
have an
I was
exit
thinking
on
that
the
maybe
CSS.
Cape and Hill would allow them to go over, have a road out, and that would be a turnaround for them to come across and do something that way. But I don't know,
Do
they still
something.
only be able to go right, and there's 4,000 cars there, so I don't know.
They
It's a
come
lot.
out by the bunch.
Griff,
there, and it's-
when you come out of Excel,
That'll be some
that
accidents.
hump
Yes.
is a very, very dangerous in a low car because you cannot see like a truck can.
Come out of Zob the same way.
Even in a truck, and I come out of that in a truck almost daily, you can see pretty good, but you're still in a truck, so you
And
can
your
only
heart
go
is
so
going,
fast.
please hope no one's coming.
It is very, very dangerous right there.
And you got to shift in a big truck too, and you got to go through the gears. I mean, it's just.
Hey, Sweet Molly's, what are they? I know it's cookies. Are they
She's off of
Fulling Mill?
Fulling Mill. Yeah,
Is she? What is she doing with them?
she's selling chocolate chip cookies, peanut butter cookies.
How do you get them though? Like with events or?
You could get on her website.
Okay.
We call her here in the office, and I order her 2 dozen. She brings them down, and we all have cookies.
Oh,
They're
that's
awesome. They're huge. The best cookies.
I get them from the Girl Scouts.
Well, you better try Sweet Molly's because it sounds like they're pretty
Yeah,
good.
local
I
business
got. I
there.
was down at Dunkin' Donuts the other day, right? And I know the kids. You know.
Nothing
I
against
says,
Girl Scouts.
So you got us Girl Scouts? Got any Boy Scout cookies? They
Oh,
looked
boy.
at me like,
We're off on a tangent.
Charlton has a lot of small businesses that I've worked with coming out. Charlton Beer is one of them that they're going to be ready to open for an inspection. We've had Sixth Straight Brewing that is out of a home, which has gotten big, and now even just cookies. We've had cupcake companies go from small residential kitchens to big warehouses in Charlton. So there are a lot of entrepreneurs, and we try and help them if it allows to get in and allow them to do these things.
how's
And
the
so-
zoning for 'em?
The zoning in Charlton is very, as long as they don't drive to the house to pick up, the zoning allows for a home-based business. And that's something they apply for right away. I don't give a permit unless they're allowed to get a home-based business and it's allowed through zoning. Because you certainly don't want your neighbor having 50 cars on Fulling Mill Drive pull up. But she goes out to,
Yeah. Thinking
You'd
of
be
something
there
else.
every day.
Yeah.
From
You
the
know
sounds
what?
of it.
Next meeting, I'm going to make sure we get some cookies from you because they are absolutely phenomenal. They are. They're very, very good.
Well,
You should-
if it's a
Bill.
safety and health issue, we might want to try these cookies. Jim,
Yeah,
do you
we
have-
already did.
I did try them.
Yeah.
That's what you ought to be bringing back to the
I
board.
did pay for them, so.
Also, do you have any other anything else that you'd like to discuss?
Geez, there's so much going on. Certainly, I will discuss at the next meeting. I will talk to Cassandra tomorrow, La Rochelle, and the people about, Mary Jude said keep her advised. I think that I will also let. I'm sure Robin already knows. I think she was here, but I'm not sure of the board's decision.
Okay.
So.
And Jim Malley, is there anything that we can do to help him?
Can we do this off camera? Maybe
Yeah.
if we talk, if you make an adjournment, we'll discuss that if you want quickly.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.